Welcome to the Style Study session for category 1B American Lager. And we are going to start off as we always do with the vital statistics. And those numbers for American Lager are original gravity 1.040 to 1.050, final gravity 1.004 to 1.010, IBU range is 8 to 18, SRM range is 2 to 3.5, and the ABV range is 4.2 to 5.3%. So, going to the overall impression, according to the guidelines, it says a very pale, highly carbonated, light-bodied, well-attenuated lager with a very neutral flavor profile and low bitterness. Served very cold, it can be a very refreshing and thirst-quenching drink. All right, so now the things we need to know about this beer and kind of have we do not kind of have, but have to have in our memories to be prepared for our judging exam. We're starting off with aroma, and we've got low malt aroma optional, may be perceived as grainy, sweet, or corn-like if present. Light, spicy, or floral hop aroma optional. While a clean fermentation profile is desirable, a light amount of yeast character is not a fault. On to appearance for 1B. Very pale straw to medium yellow color. White, frothy head seldom persist and very clear. Flavor for 1B American Lager. Relatively neutral palate with a crisp, dry finish and a moderately low to low grainy or corn-like flavor that may be perceived as sweetness due to the low bitterness. Moderately low hop flavor optional with floral, spicy, or herbal quality if strong enough to distinguish. Low to medium low bitterness. Balance may vary from slightly malty to slightly bitter, but is usually close to even. High carbonation may accentuate the crispness and dry finish, clean fermentation profile. And finally, for the characteristics that we judge against, under mouthfeel, it says low to medium low body. Very highly carbonated with a slight carbonic bite on the tongue. All right, now the last thing we're interested in this entry is the commercial examples. And for the commercial examples, the style list Budweiser, Coors Original, which I believe is now Coors Banquet if you're out looking for this. So you're probably not going to find a label that says Coors Original. Look for Coors Banquet. That's the beer that it is released under now, or the name that the beer is released under now. Going on, Grain Belt Premium American Lager, Miller High Life, Old Style, Pabst Blue Ribbon, and Special Export. And I do have one of those to try here, and it's a Miller High Life. How many of you remember, oh gosh, I don't even know what year it was, many, many years ago, probably decades, where Miller bought 1 second ads on the Super Bowl and it was just the spokesman going, High Life! I'm probably the only one that remembers that. But I think of that every time I buy one of these, which was when I bought this. Anyway, let's crack this open. I do have my study card here. Here it is, the American Lager. Gonna look at that after I make my initial impressions. And let's get this open and pour. I'm gonna try to pour a little more aggressively on the camera this time. We never really got a look at the head, but then again, the beer never really formed a head our last session. But let's see what we can do here. Okay, that's already looking tons better. Wow. Okay, that's a world of difference compared to our last time. All right. So I'm going to go with appearance because it's right here in front of the camera, even though it's kind of out of order. And again, the camera is just showing this far darker than it is. It is light yellow, white frothy head. I mean, I'm sure you can see that. That's lingering, actually. I don't believe expected. And it's clear. And again, with the wonderful 800,000% humidity we have in Central Florida, it's already clouding up or condensation is already forming up on the cup, so you can't quite see how clear it is, but it's crystal clear. For aroma, oh, it's actually, first don't get it up your nose. I only got it on my nose, almost up my nose. First, I'm actually, oddly enough, the very first thing I got was a little bit of floral, almost pollen-like aroma on there, like a hop aroma, but then followed by definite grainy, kind of almost not quite bready, almost weedy like raw wheat grain aroma. A little bit of sweetness from the base malt. Again, I would assume a Pilsner malt possibly, but I don't know. But it kind of has that characteristic just from brewing experience. Clean, definitely very clean. Flavor, I gotta do a quick summary on that. Actually, for style, it's quite flavorful. It's not a super flavorful beer compared to the world of craft beers, but for style, it's actually got some quite flavor. First thing it hits me with is malt sweetness. A little bit of that grain character kind of pushes on the top of my palate. That floral character is nearly as strong as the aroma. And there is a very faint bitterness, even less than the last example in the session we did. But we're not comparing apples to apples here in beer styles. But for this style, there is a noticeable bitterness, but not at all strong. Faint, even less than faint, delicate perhaps is the word for that. But it is there, but it's gone by the time there's really nothing in the aftertaste. Mouthfeel, it's low-bodied, definitely not watery though. Definitely highly carbonated. There's a nice texture to it, and that's about all we really need to do before we really get into the score sheet. So let's see here. What do we get that we should be getting? Low grainy, sweet, corn-like malt, everything but the corn. Light, spicy, or floral hop optional. We got that in the aroma. Clean fermentation, definitely got that. Appearance, the pale straw to medium yellow. I would say medium yellow is actually probably a good description for what I'm seeing. Again, different than what the camera's showing. White frothy head that dissipates. That, I don't know. I'd have to tilt this towards the camera. I don't know if you can see that. I don't want to spill it. It's not dissipating, which is very unexpected for the style. Very clear. We've already discussed that. Flavor, neutral palate, crisp, dry finish. It's actually not, I don't want to taste it now. I'm going to judge it. Not quite sure I would call it dry. We'll see when I really get into it. Moderate low to low grainy or corn-like, definitely the grainy. Moderately low floral, spicy herbal hop, got the floral. Low to medium low bitterness, lower than low, but there was some. May vary slightly from malty to slightly bitter. It definitely leans towards slightly. And then mouthfeel low to medium low body. Yep, very highly carbonated. Yep, we said all that. All right, I am going to fill out a score sheet, which I don't have the blank one in front of me, but it is going to be the full beer score sheet, the competition score sheet. We're not going to be doing the exam score sheet versions till maybe a third of the way through these styles, just to kind of give you a heads up. So I'm going to go ahead, get my sheet. I am going to read this one more time before I sit down and judge it. And I'm going to try to do this in 12 minutes or less and then come back and share the results with the score sheet. I hope you're also filling out with your commercial example. So I'm going to pause it and then we'll come back and discuss it. I am back and I have my score sheet. I hope you have one too. If you don't, that's fine. You can always do this again. That's the beauty of these virtual sessions. They're going to be around for a while. And again, gonna drop it promptly. But I just want to show real quick that I filled out everything. And again, just one of those things to get into the best practice of fill out everything. Don't leave any blank space. I will say that we have almost 100 styles to do. I will say that almost 100 times. I'll just let you know now. So here we go. This is what I found with this. This one was interesting. And there's a couple things I want to note going through this. One, there's something about this beer that I found off. And I'm going to discuss why I think that may be. Also, I mentioned before I pause the video, I'm going to try to do this in 12 minutes or less. And two things come at a cost of that when you're first starting out and practicing. One, it's difficult to read my handwriting. Definitely for a judge. It's even going to be difficult for me to read this, and I wrote it. And then there's something that as I was writing it, I was like, I'm going to have to talk about this because that's something you need to watch out for when you're pushing yourself to get things done in a time limit, and you're going to have a time limit in a judging exam. So I'm actually glad this example came up. But let's get to it here. So aroma. I found this in this 1B American Lager, low to moderately low, grainy, bready, sweet malts. A stronger than expected sweet pollen-like floral aroma, a distinctly sweet cooked corn note that came out more as the sample warmed up, bordering on overwhelming. We'll talk about that as we go. Give it a 10 out of 12. For appearance, light to medium yellow in color, medium low to medium frothy white head on pour that lingered throughout the entire session. Strong lacing on the sides of the sample cup. I give that a 3 out of 3, and I'm going to show you. I poured the last of it. Hopefully, it's a little fuller than before, so I can't tilt it. But you can see just at that without tilting it. The head's still lingering, which says right here on the little sheet, which is built from the guidelines, dissipates. Okay, not this time, not this beer. 3 out of 3 on that one. So appearance. I'm sorry, 3 out of 3 on appearance. Sorry. Flavor. Sweet malt character dominates the tongue and palate, leading to a drier, grainy, bready, and bread crust note. A faint floral character presents more as the palate adjusts. A noticeable corn-like sweetness evolves as the sample warms up. A delicate but present bitterness in the finish. Now, the thing I wanted to point out there was evolves is certainly not the right word I wanted to use. Now, I had a word... I had an example of this in the last category, but this is much, much worse. A much stronger example, I should say. It doesn't evolve because it doesn't change. But I was out of time, so I kept going. There's about a half dozen words that would be better than that. It presents, grows, even just shows up would be a better phrase than evolves. It kind of misleads what I'm trying to say. Do I think it's that big of a deal in the judging? I would hope not, but it could be, which is why I wanted to point that out. And I did not have time to go back and erase that and put something in. And in fact, it's in such a spot in the score sheet that it would have been difficult to do. I did finish in under 12 minutes, but like it was 11:30 plus. I don't even know what the last number was. Not really enough to go and find that word and change it. So that's another thing just to be aware of. Sometimes either words, they're escaping me right now, so talking might escape you, and you might use a word that you don't mean to use, and that's one of those things that we will work on as we go in these judging exams. But I was kind of glad that happened, so I could point that out when we got to it in this. So going back to this, I give this a 16 out of 20, which is, I think, feels very low for a commercial example. And again, I will talk about that in the end here. Mouthfeel, I said medium low in body, highly carbonated, no noticeable or overwhelming alcohol warmth, a pleasant light cream-like texture, carbonation brightens many of the beer characteristics, no astringency. Again, hitting everything that this score sheet says right here to mention. 5 out of 5 on that. Overall impression, a clean, refreshing beer. Malt character is quite flavorful for style, with a noticeable but not overwhelming hop presence. A sweet cooked corn character comes out as the sample warms up and presents stronger than style suggests. A longer boil may be required if using a malt with known DMS precursors. Very clean and enjoyable beer, and I gave that a 7. And overall, I got a 41 out of 50, which still puts it in the excellent category. One thing I haven't done before in these, right over here, I marked DMS because if this were a homebrew, I think I would mark that corn character and note that corn character as possible DMS. It was kind of a little strong for what the style suggests. Now, that might be intentional by Miller because that might be something that big Miller High Life fans like in this beer. To me, it was a little much. It wasn't overwhelming. I've had not only homebrew examples, but local brewery commercial examples that were way stronger than this. But this is even stronger than I thought it should be. And what's funny is that I had one of these on a very hot day. I bought a pack of 4, and I had one of these on a very hot day because I wanted a beer, but I didn't really want any of the other really strong, flavorful beers I had when I was really hot. So I drank it. Did not get any DMS. The difference this time was I probably drank that in like 6 or 7 minutes. I judged this over 12 minutes as well as the 3 or 4 minutes it took me to pour it and talk about it on this video in the first section of that. I don't think I've ever had it this warm is what I'm trying to say. And that corn character really came out. So much to the point that I think it's more than it should be. I don't know that it's DMS. It's just such a strong corn character that I marked as DMS. I could be completely wrong, and I most likely am. But it did give me some practice in marking off some off flavors and suggesting how to improve it if I was correct in my evaluation. And that's it. But other than that, I mean, it's still a 41. That's a great score. It's a commercial example. And again, like I said, and I will say over and over again, I now have something in my mind to compare it to. I might find something better as time goes on preparing for my exam, but at the very least, there's something I can compare it to if I'm given a 1B on my judging exam. And that, as I also said before, is the point of these sessions. So that is it for 1B. Thank you for joining me. I hope you joined me all the way to the point of filling out your own score sheet. But again, if you didn't, you have plenty of chance to do that in the future. The important thing is to know these styles, know what they're supposed to be and what they're not supposed to be. And if at all possible, get an example somewhere in the recesses of your memory so that you're better prepared for that judging exam. And on that note, we will move on to 1C and talk about Cream Ale. That's next.